Sage Wanderer here, and welcome to my cabin down by the creek. So, today I wanted to forego my normal Sunday religious message and have a chat with you, just a discussion about the state of our world. And many of you know who watch the channel that I experienced a 5.8 earthquake here in my cabin. I was literally at the epicenter. If you look at the epicenter of that map, it is almost dead on top of my house. And at first it was categorized to 5.1 or 5.2, but after they went back and looked at all the data, it's official, it was a 5.8. It was a shallow quake, only 3 miles deep, and that means the effect of the shaking, the violentness of the shaking, was actually more felt than a deep earthquake would be. And so my experience kind of goes like this. And if you're wondering what kind of hat I'm wearing my bump cap. I wish I'd gone to bed with my bump cap. Actually, I was lucky. I did not get injured, other than I fell down in the middle of the quake, because you can't walk when the house is doing this. Just the other day on Wednesday, little Jazzy was born. And as you know, I have a family living in my other cabin here that I have taken in, and we've kind of become family for each other. And I'm the pawpaw or the grandpa to their little man, who is 1.5 years. And now he's got a little sister who was just born on Wednesday, prematurely and underweight. Because of some issues with the placenta. They took the baby early, and she was 4 pounds 8 ounces and 18 inches long, so Barbie doll sized. When they got her all wrapped up, she looks like that glowworm toy, if you remember from the 80s. I call her the glowworm. But I had little man over here with me. They were in the cabin next door, and the mother's mother, the grandmother of these babies, was staying with them as well, because the newborn was helping out. And I had little man over here with me, and I was watching him. I have him in a playpen right next to my bed. And he was sound asleep, and I went ahead and went to bed, and I had just fallen asleep when I was awakened by what can only be described as explosions. This was not like what I've heard about California earthquakes. California people who move out here and experience Oklahoma earthquakes will tell you they are very different. And so my mind did not at all go towards this is an earthquake. My mind went straight to this is nuclear war, we're under attack, we've been nuked. Bombs are dropping, this is bombs. There was no doubt in my mind. My mind went immediately to there's bombs. I get awakened by the first explosion. And unlike California quakes, these make sound. These shallow quakes, you can hear them. You can feel them and hear them. And it sounds like rolls of peals of thunder. So this could be described in my experience as 4 successive timed explosions. It very much reminded me of when they were blasting for gold mines in Oregon when I was a kid, and they would rig TNT to go off in quick succession, in time succession, to cause a wall of rock to pulverize and come down. And so it's a chain reaction explosion that they use, and it's like boom, 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 boom. 4 of them, boom, 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 boom. This is what I experienced, with the first and the last 2 being slightly less volume, and the second explosion being the most preeminent. So it very much reminded me of when I see ordnance dropped in the Gaza war, and they take out a building. It's boom, 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 in quick succession, where they drop a series of bombs. And so this is what my mind immediately went to. Those are bombs going off, right? I awakened to what, I look to my right as I come bolt straight up in bed, and it looks like one corner of my house is literally popping with each explosion. Boom, 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 off of its foundation. I don't know if that's what happened. I haven't been under the house, but it doesn't seem like anything as far as the structure has been affected in this main cabin. And but it looked like the whole corner of my house was being lifted up and dropped with each explosion. My bed was coming off the ground with each explosion. By the end of the second explosion, the big one, the first one woke me up. The next one came just a split second afterwards. I bolted to my feet and started to run around the bed to get to little man and check on him. You know, just go straight to the baby was my instinct. When my front door flew open on the third explosion, and before checking on the baby, my first thought was slam the door, get the door closed, because whatever, there may be debris coming. There may be, you know, I got to get that door bolted. And I often go to sleep without bolting my front door because in a pen with no outside exterior gate and the only way in and out being this house, out in that large fenced-in perimeter are 3 very vicious, well-trained guard dogs who patrol my property. And so that door I'm not worried about because you got to get past them 3 dogs before you can even get to that door. And then it's got glass in the window, so you can just bust it out and open it. So I don't often go to a lot of trouble to bolt that door unless I'm leaving. And so because it wasn't bolted, it was enough torque in the house. To understand what structure I live in, I'm in a cabin that's a prefab cabin. So it's built on these 2 runners of immense timbers that run through the center of the house. And then the ribs of the house are laid on it. In many ways, this house is built like a boat. It's freestanding, and it makes it more structurally sound because it's designed to be put on the bed of a pickup and hauled across bumpy roads. It was brought here on the back of a flatbed trailer. Or so I believe it to be. I mean, I don't know the history myself, but I bought one of these and they delivered it on a flatbed out in Texas. And so I know how they're built. And because of the way they're built, I think they're less likely to have damage, things like cracked sheetrock, you know, fallen corners of the house or whatever, than houses that are built on traditional footings or on a slab foundation especially. So this house is kind of free floating. It's sitting on cinder blocks. And then I wouldn't have purchased it if it didn't have the best strap down system I've ever seen on a house. They have at least twice as many strap downs as recommended for Tornado Alley. And these are metal bands this wide and a ratcheting system that goes down to an anchor that's set in concrete in the ground. So this house didn't skip its foundation, I'm sure of it. What I was experiencing was the ground raising up, that the ground was raising up a significant amount suddenly, like a bubble being popped. And so that's what gave me the sensation that the house left the ground, right? I think the ground just raised and the house stayed with the ground. But everything inside the house was raised, and when it came back down in a different place. So amongst these 4 explosions, of course, as soon as the first explosion happens, my brain is fine-tuned to this is war. And I sit up and I just figure there's bombs dropping all around us. All I can think of is this is either nukes or this is conventional bombing. And why, if they're bombing rural Oklahoma, then the coasts are dead. The coasts are gone. All this is rapidly running through my head in a flash. And so I leap out of bed on the first explosion. And that's when the second explosion hit. That's when everything in my house went flying in every direction. My cabinets opened up and everything in them was flying in all directions. I had 2 shelves that were high shelves that were beautiful that are over my couch that completely collapsed and came apart. They were blown off the wall. And all of the things that were on them, some of them very heavy, like the oak encased in glass triangular folded flag that was on the old Marine's casket, was kept up there on those shelves, and along with a couple of heavy brass bookends. And these became potential deadly projectiles when this happened. And in my bathroom, I have 2 medicine cabinets and a couple of shelving units. everything on those were expelled off. The doors were blown open, and everything in them was strewed everywhere. And but ironically, I didn't get as much as a broken piece of glass, and that's mainly because I kept glasses in the heavier cabinet doors didn't open. The ones that have the springs on them, and the things inside stayed inside, thank God. But that's where all the glassware is kept. So about the only thing that was really glass is the windows and my coffee pot. And luckily none of that broke. But as I'm awakened by the first explosion, I yell, "Save us, Jesus! Save us, Jesus!" And I jump out of bed in time for the second explosion just as I'm coming out of the bed. Or you might say the second explosion knocked me out of bed. I came to my feet. I came around the end of my bed to get to the other side of the bed where little man was at. I push his playpen right up next to my bed, so I can't get out there. I have to go around, right? And as I'm coming around, that's when the front door blows open, and all I can think of is I got to get that door shut. And part of it is my pit bull, my American bully, is right on my heel through this entire process. He's like on me, like white on rice, and I know that he doesn't get along with the main bulldog out front, the big mastiff I've got. They compete. They're both unneutered males, and they're incompatible play partners, even though they kind of love each other. And over time, they got used to living together. But when this door comes open, that's the territorial line, and dogfights happen there all the time if I don't keep him back. And so that's my instinct is there could be flying debris. I got to get the door shut. I had a brief thought there might be troops now also coming. I need the door shut. I just desperately ran to shut the door once I saw that little man was still asleep. And I ran and pushed the door closed. I fell along the way because the third and fourth explosions caused the ground to be moving under my feet. I felt the earth move under my feet. It was literally the floor was moving. So I stumbled like a drunk, and I came down to one knee at one point, but I got the door closed and bolted. And at this point, Bully is so scared he loses his urine all over the floor. Like he just evacuates his bladder right there. It's beyond his control. He's terrified. He's as terrified as I am. I run to little man. He's still asleep. And in that moment, I thought, I wonder what's going on with this family in the adjacent house here. And I know we use propane heat. And so I thought, did the propane tank blow over there? Is that what caused this? And I had these horrible thoughts of them being cooked alive. Of course, it wasn't that. The window between here and the back door showed me that there was no fireball or any presence of fire. And in my mind, I'm thinking we got nuked. I'm thinking, Tinker Air Force Base is about 45 miles from my location. Tinker Air Force Base is on the first tier of strikes if you intend to do anything to this country, because that's our AWACS station and everyone knows it. What they mainly do there is service and deploy the AWACS systems throughout the world. AWACS are these big 747 jets with this thing on top that looks like a flying pancake. And they're command and control centers and communication centers, radar, and that's what those big antenna arrays are for that's on the top of these aircraft. And they fly out of Tinker. And so I've always known that Tinker could be a target. And I had pre-calculated in my mind what a nuclear blast from Tinker might feel like here 45 miles away. And I know there would be that earthquake experience followed quickly by a blast wave, which would blow out all the windows, potentially send fragments or debris through the walls of your home, tornado style. So like a flat wind, straight line tornado. And that's another thing that was in my head, was to get the door closed, right? And get away from these windows that are in the front of the house. And so anyway, once I deduced that little man is still sleeping and I decide I need to run over there, it's already, they're already coming through my door. They went straight out of there and ran straight to the shelter of Pawpaw. So the whole group of them are coming out. And the first thing I yell is, "Does she have the baby?" Because I see her, but I don't see the baby. But she's got her, the little baby, the few-day-old baby, 3-day-old baby, 2 days at that point, 2 or 3 days. Anyway, wrapped in up in a blanket in her arms, and they all come in the house. And I'm saying from the moment that my feet hit the ground, they're bombing us. This is war. We're being bombed. We're being bombed. They come into the room and I'm telling them, we're being bombed. Come in, get in here, close the door. We're being bombed. We're at war. And they come out with their cell phones. That generation has them on them. And that makes me think of my sister. So I run to my cell phone and I call my sister. And I said, we're being bombed. We're being bombed. And she says, we are? Now, they felt the earthquake. They knew it was an earthquake. And I think part of the reason they knew it was an earthquake is they were further away and it was more earthquake-like and less explosion-like. Because I was on top of a shallow earthquake, 3 miles deep, at the epicenter. For us, it was the effect of a series of explosions. For them, it was the whole earth rattling, I don't believe they heard it. My sister talks about a whirring sound she heard right before it. Later that night, we would experience another 3.0 aftershock, and I was wide awake for that one. And it was preceded by what I perceive as a vibration that I could feel in my rear end, kind of like a subwoofer. Boo, and then the boom! And we had another one that rocked the house. That was a few hours later. But that's the first time my mind thinks earthquake, is when my sister said, I think it's an earthquake. And then she starts reading, and I guess she's on some, maybe Facebook, and people are posting about it. And she starts reading their accounts, and I'm confused. And I said, what are you reading? And she said, the accounts of the earthquake. And in that moment, that's when I realized it wasn't World War III. Those 3 to 5 minutes before it sank in that was an earthquake and not bombs, was as close as I'll probably ever get to the real thing. That I was absolutely certain that was either conventional bombs going off, big ones, nearby, which would mean a much larger nationwide blanket attack on America. Or I was experiencing the shock and the wave of a nuclear explosion at Tinker Air Force Base in Oklahoma City, in Midwest City. And it wasn't until my sister said earthquake, and then little man's mama she found it and they said, it's an earthquake. It's a 5.0 earthquake. And so that's how quick we got news about it. But it was about 3 to 5 minutes where I was on a war footing. And I was about to start putting people in the storm shelter. And arming myself up. That's what was going in my head. I got to gear up. I got to get ready for the human wave of attack that may come right on the heels of the bombing. And everything in my brain was saying, this is Red Dawn, this is Red Dawn, this is it. A lifetime of living under the threat of nuclear war. We have been essentially on the verge of nuclear war since before I was born. And my entire life, I have had this shadow hanging over us. Generation X is the first generation to grow up with the full understanding of what a nuclear war could look like, would look like, and what effects it might have. It's probably why our generation was, especially so early on, bent on self-destruction. We lived like there was no tomorrow because there probably wasn't going to be a tomorrow. None of my generation had the belief that we would grow old. If I knew I was going to live this long, I would have took better care of myself, right? I figured we'd all go up in a fireball long ago. And all of those fears, even though they were diminished over the years when nothing happened, and the end of the Cold War and the fall of the Soviet Empire, all that had caused me to relax a little bit. But all of that residual fear, all of that residual angst that had been in me since childhood came to the surface in that 3 to 5 minutes. For 3 to 5 minutes, I was in World War II experiencing a nuclear holocaust from a distance. It left me with a form of PTSD, right? It made me really realize how close we are to that. That could happen to any or all of us in the blink of an eye. Only this time it's not an earthquake. It's bombs dropping. And one bright side to this is that even at the very beginning of it, when I go, this is it, this is war, we're being attacked, my brain runs through my preps, and I realize I don't have all that I wished I had. But I got the basics covered. The house is still standing, and I know I have the means to keep me and this young family alive. Uh, and I'm running through the holes in that scenario, like I have enough iodine tablets for me. I don't have enough iodine tablets for all of them. I don't know if you give iodine tablets to a baby or a small child, and if so, what dosage? There's things, those minor details flew out in my head in that 3 to 5 minutes where I believed we were under a nuclear war. And on the bright side, I thought I got food covered for the near future, and because I keep a pantry, and when I was by myself, it was significant. Now that there's so many more people here and others that might end up coming here, it's not near enough, right? But it's enough for now, right? And I have some freeze-dried food that I've had for years. It keeps for years, and I've dragged it all over the country, and I've added more to it over time. And for me, that's about a 3-month supply. For all of us, it's less than 30 days when you combine it in my pantry and everything. It's probably more like 2 or 3 weeks. I know I've got 3 days worth of water, and I realize that's not near enough. And my mind flashes to these 550-gallon outdoor tanks that I have that I don't have filled up, that are sitting there empty. And I need to get on that with the plumbing and lining it up with getting it. I had one running, and a big freeze came and blasted the spigot off year before last, and I just haven't replaced it. So it sits there, and the water runs through it and out the bottom. And I'm not catching the rainwater, but I have a rainwater catchment system has appeared on this channel. And so I immediately go, I haven't got enough water. The 30 gallons of water is not enough water. And only 14 of that is purified drinking water. The rest is just like well water that's been in there for a while. And so I saw where I had holes in my preps. And but at the same time, I saw how much further ahead that I am now compared to in the past. How much further ahead I am than probably my neighbors. And how much I am actually prepared for something on that level. But in those first 30 to 45 seconds, nothing was in my head except a plea to God. I came up screaming, "Save us, Jesus! Save us, Jesus!" It had a profound emotional effect on me. I think had I known it was an earthquake, I would have made sure that little man was okay. I might have thrown my comforter over the top of his playpen to give him some protection from any falling objects and wrote it out on the bed, right? I don't think that I would have gone into such an immediate panic because I had no idea it was an earthquake till 3 to 5 minutes later, probably 5 minutes later. For 5 minutes, I was experiencing World War III. And what's frightening is the main reason I think I was so certain of it is because just the day before, that same day, the same night that happened on Friday, we used B-1 bombers to do a massive bombing campaign against these Iranian proxy groups in Syria and in Iraq. And I know that we're preparing to bring that destruction to Iran. I know that they're planning a war on Iran, that their backing of these groups, the proxy war, is going to turn into an actual war with Iran. And can they hit us? Can they drone strike us? When the size and massiveness of that explosion, which turned out to be an earthquake, and the fact of that we're in the middle of nowhere, and if they're hitting us in the middle of nowhere, they really must have hit the main targets already, and they're gone. And it made me think, Iran couldn't do this. It's got to be Russia or China, right? And so in the last 48 hours since this happened, not quite 48, 36 hours since this happened, I'm increasingly angry and dissatisfied with the general political idea of how this country should be ran. So I'm going to spend the last little portion of this video telling you what I think we should do. First of all, we should not be stirring the international pot. We are an island nation. We are easily defendable, but we're not defending ourselves because we're making the classic mistake of the Roman Empire and projecting ourselves too far out in the world, that we need to pull our troops back, secure our borders, and Trump was right. We need a 100-foot concrete anti-tank barrier. We need something that you can't take down with a D3 Cat, right? That you can't take down with a bulldozer, that you can't push a tank through. We need anti-tank defense systems all along the southern border and all along the Canadian border. And we need our Navy to be beefed up and to come home. We probably wouldn't have to beef it up if they would just bring the ships home and stop patrolling the world's waterways and take care of America. If we spent all the money that we're spending on foreign wars, if we took all the money that we're spending on stirring the pot and we used it to really defend the United States, which means a powerful Navy along our island coasts and a substantial wall manned by a substantial number of physical troops and armaments all along, and barricaded ourselves, that we'd still have money left over to feed the hungry and the homeless, and to educate the ignorant, and to bring up to speed and bring into the workforce the people without skills. That we could transform this world, this country, we could transform our country socially and make us all feel safer. And we would be much less likely to get struck in any kind of war because we're not out there stirring the pot. We're not out there doing regime changes. We're not out there doing CIA covert ops. We're not out there helping rebels overthrow governments and giving these maniacs from around the world a reason to target us. We should withdraw. Now, when you bring that up, people call you an isolationist and claim it doesn't work. And I would say you're absolutely full of crud. Because this nation was an isolationist nation, and we were growing like gangbusters. We were advancing at an epic, unprecedented rate until we started getting involved in these foreign wars. World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, all of the Central American wars, all of the Asian conflicts, all our involvement with Israel in the Middle East, all of this has put a target on our back. And it's going to happen. Sooner or later, they're going to get to us here in the homeland. And I don't believe that we have prospered. We might have, the military-industrial complex, the government might have prospered, but individual people of my generation, and now the younger generation is feeling it too, live under this constant cloud of destruction, that we could be destroyed at any time. That booming that turned out to be an earthquake could have very well been the end of the United States through a massive missile attack or bombing campaign or combined effort. And it would be on us. It'd be our own dang fault because we stirred it up. If we just concentrated on growing our wheat and our corn, on building our own technological foundations, this globalist, the global-wide world economy has not really worked in our favor. It helps out the big bankers, it helps out the mega corporations, but the individuals are more and more susceptible to failure because we're not localized. Our food doesn't come from within 100 miles of our house. Our electricity is shared on this open grid that if you take down one section, you can take them all down. We're too dependent on technology that could fail, be hacked, or destroyed by an enemy attack. That had we taken all of the resources and energy that we put towards these foreign wars and this battle in other nations and turned those efforts inward to making us safer and more secure, securing our food production in this country, securing our transportation in this country, securing our power grid in this country, building up our borders. If a migrant from South America armed with nothing more than a folding pocket knife and a backpack, can breach our southern border and just walk across, what would an army do? We have zero self-defense apart from our Navy. And our Navy is not present most of the time. It's out there, projecting our power into the world. Where is the candidate that's saying these things? The closest thing we have is the T-Man. But even he, as a international businessman, has all of this foreign policy agenda. He had the right idea in ending these endless wars and getting us out of Afghanistan. And had he been president on that withdrawal, we would have also left with all our toys instead of giving them to the Taliban under Biden by just abandoning them. But where is the candidate that's really saying, let's stop projecting our power out into the world? Because the people that run this country and the people that are trying to do globalism, they want to control everything and everyone around the world. They want to take over the world. What are we going to do today, Pinky? Or Brain said Pinky. Why, Pinky, we're going to do what we do every day. Try and take over the world. There are crazy, insane, out of their mind people who would throw every one of us on the scrap heap of humanity to conquer and control the whole world. They could care less about your life and your well-being. Most of the insanity, most of the self-destructive behavior of my generation was at its core because we didn't believe we had a future. Nobody planned for the retirement for the first time in American history because we didn't think we'd be living long enough to get retired. We were just going to get eliminated before then. We lived for today because there was no tomorrow. Where is the leader who says, we shouldn't have to live like this in fear? That we send anti-ballistic missile systems to other countries to protect their capitals and to protect their borders when we have nothing of the sort here. There should be a Patriot missile battery, an anti-missile missile system every half a mile, the entire southern and northern border of this country, all along the coastline, and our coastline should be just continuously patrolled by our Navy. But that's not our reality. Where is the leader that's going to arise and say, America, pull back from this insanity? We don't need to control the world. We need to clean our own house. We need to make our people feel safe again. I've never felt safe in my entire life. This has hung over me since it hung over the generation before me to some degree, but my generation was the first one to live fully over it from birth to casket. We've lived under this threat of imminent death. Where is the candidate that puts America first? And I mean not just in global politics, but I mean in actual infrastructure. Why do we still have electric wires that run along top of the ground instead of being buried and insulated so they can't be taken out by foreign attacks or by sabotage or by an EMP or a solar flare? Why do we not have community nuclear shelters and everyone know where they are? Why are they not filled with food? Because we're feeding foreign troops so they can fight for their independence in other nations. Meanwhile, we sit under constant fear of destruction. Yeah, I would say this little earthquake had quite an effect on me, but not because it was an earthquake. If I had known it was an earthquake, I'd have rolled over and gone back to sleep. But I believed I was experiencing, finally, the thing I have feared my whole life. The bombing of America. Tell me what you think. I only feel safe because I know I'm sheltered in the arms of Christ. And that's why when it hit the fan for me, the first words out of my mouth was, "Save us, Jesus! Save us! Jesus, save us!" That's the single bastion that's the only place in my life that isn't riddled with fear is the fact that I know Jesus has got me. And if something like that happened, I'd find a way through it. Because all things are possible through Christ who strengthens me. It's the only thing I have to lean on. But we should have more. Lord help me. Can I get an amen? Can I get an amen in the comment section? Can you chime in on this? Shouldn't we have more protection in this country? Shouldn't we be focused on our own protection instead of projecting our influence? And should we stop trying to conquer the world and just work towards making America a safe place again? So we don't have to lay in bed waiting for the bombs to drop. I don't know. Experience has profoundly changed me. And I will probably put more effort into plugging some of those holes that popped into my head about my preps when this happened. I need more water on hand, right? If you want to make a donation to this, also I did suffer some damage. I'm just now finding out. This house didn't get damaged, but the one that they're living in, it looks like I might have had some roof buckling in the metal roof, and now I've got a couple of leaks over there. So if you want to contribute to the cause here, there is a link to PayPal and Cash App in the description of this video. You can also send something to my P.O. box. I need some iodine tablets in case we get nuked. I have enough for me. I need enough for them too. So send some of those to my P.O. box. Anything you think can help. And if you got enough, then help me out. Help me plug some of these holes. And I need to get that plumbing done out there. Money's an issue on it. I just need to buy the parts. So any help you offer is great. And I guess I'll see you next time from my cabin down by the woods.